Sandman is a Netflix show based on the comic series of the same name by Neil Gaimen. I knew very little about the Sandman comics before watching the show, though I did manage to stumble across a few issues here and there growing up. Even in these small, brief glimpses into Gaiman's world, I found myself struck by its scale and beauty, while simultaneously haunted by the ethereal designs of its inhabitants. Luckily, the intricacy, scale, and otherworldliness of Gaiman's universe was translated excellently to television. The environments, Dream's Castle especially, are entrancing and unique, and yet so much detail is attributed to these locations that they feel as though they could very well be real. It's an aesthetic that many shows and films often fail to demonstrate effectively. The visual effects as a whole are astounding. Mythic environments and characters leap off the screen with a vivid, vibrant realism. In the world of the Sandman, seven godlike siblings who personify various concepts, among them desire, despair, death, and dream, the personification of dreams, who rules over the land that all humans visit when they sleep. When Dream is mistaken for his sister Death and captured for over 100 years, it throws both his realm and the waking world into chaos, leaving him to try and rebuild what was lost and track down the serial murderer Corinthian, a nightmare who escaped the dreaming and wreaks havoc on the land of the living in the wake of his master's absence. While I felt that not every performance in this series was up to par, I'll revisit this point a little later, the lead actors were absolutely fantastic. Tom Sturridge brings a sort of haunting ethereal air to the role of Dream. His voice is soft and mellow, yet commanding when the scene calls for it. The way he subtly displays emotion throughout the series allows him to communicate that his character is evolving without it seeming out of place. Likewise, Boyd Holbrook effortlessly slides into the role of the Corinthian, the nightmarish yet charming serial murderer who easily gains control of almost any situation. In terms of negatives, the biggest issue I have with The Sandman comes in the latter portion of the series. There are 4 episodes in the second half which contain 2 central performances from young actors. There is no other way to say that these performances are absolutely awful. Both of these actors seem to just be reading their lines without emphasizing any emotion whatsoever. They may be discussing difficult and taxing subject matter, but both individuals, especially the younger of the two, may as well be reading off a grocery list. The content of the episodes is perfectly fine otherwise, and luckily, especially in regards to the final of these 4 episodes, we still get plenty of scenes with Dream and the Corinthian, so the series isn't relying solely upon these 2 actors and their awful performances, but still, these characters are both integral to this section of the series, and the performances did slightly taint my viewing experience. I loved the look of the world, and I also enjoyed the subtle evolution and arc that the character of Dream goes through over the course of the series, as he learns the value of free will and what it means to live as a human being. Dream is powerful and above mankind, and yet he is not omnipotent. He doesn't understand everything about human nature, even though, at the beginning of the series at least, he likes to believe that he does. This dichotomy, of a character strong enough to be considered a god by our standards, and who believes themselves to be greater than humankind, but who is also guided by their own biases and misconceptions, in much the same way human beings are, intrigued me. The series has such a memorable way of communicating events and information. For example, there is a fight scene that occurs in episode 4 where the 2 participants battle with words, changing their environments and affecting their opponents through ideas rather than fists. This concept may sound boring on paper, but watching the world around the characters change in this way was fascinating to watch. I found it to be such a creative way to communicate a conflict. The Sandman excels at finding visually intriguing ways of depicting its concepts. The writing in The Sandman is excellent. With multiple characters weaving their way in and out of the narrative, the writers did a fantastic job at communicating who these characters are and how they think without it seeming unnatural. While the music of The Sandman never particularly stood out to me, I felt it did an effective job at portraying the required emotions of the scene. With the exception of 2 poor performances, The Sandman is near perfect. It features beautiful visuals, an engaging central character played brilliantly by Tom Sturridge, and an engrossing and compelling narrative. I'm going to give The Sandman a 9 out of 10.